As a Seattle-based attorney who has handled a lot of domestic violence matters and runs a firm that handles a lot of domestic violence matters throughout the Puget Sound region, I have some thoughts on domestic violence and on anger that I think are relevant to anybody facing these kinds of charges or families that are trying to cope with it. I think what's first important to say is that domestic violence is not a crime in and of itself. It's a label that's added to an underlying crime that indicates that that crime happened between two people in a close and intimate relationship. So, for example, you can have an assault charge between two strangers. If that happened between two spouses, it would be called assault per domestic violence or assault DV. The implication of domestic violence, or at least to me, perhaps either because of my upbringing or how much I've been exposed to the system, is that in relationships that are labeled domestic violence, there's an implication or a presumption that there's a pattern or cycle of violence between these two people that traditionally is thought of to use to control and dominate, in particular, the female partner in a relationship. And that problem, I think, has driven a lot of the ideology around domestic violence as a label. Having said that, anger issues are fundamentally different because they're not necessarily used to control or dominate the other person. They are expressions of frustration, be it from work, from relationship problems, from a lot of things. Anger is often just simply a secondary emotion. What is interesting is, or what is relevant is, what's the primary emotion that it's coming from. Given that anger isn't the purpose of being angry is not to control and dominate the other party, it's very important that anger issues be treated separately or dealt with differently by your defense counsel than traditional domestic violence issues would be. It's also important to know that it doesn't mean that anger issues and domestic violence problems can't overlap. What I'm saying, though, is that I've dealt with a lot of clients where the issue really is an anger issue. It's really not a traditional domestic violence issue. And making sure that the court, the prosecutor, and any resolution of the case reflects that is essential to having an experience of justice that you can handle and that will leave you in a better place for having gone through it. Now, obviously, as a defense counsel, my obligation is pretty simple. I minimize the criminal consequences of any allegations or charges for my clients. That being said, what my clients need to know is that when they proactively deal with the reasons why the criminal accusations came to be, and they take steps to demonstrate they're dealing with that, generally professional evaluations, some follow-up treatment as deemed necessary, it puts me in a better position and my firm consistently in a better position to negotiate with the prosecutor in cases that don't have significant proof problems and should go to trial or are based off of false accusations. What I'm trying to say is that, ironically, doing the one thing which isn't a common thing for, I think, for criminal defense attorneys to say, which is, let's talk about what's going on. Let's spend some time, 2 or 3 hours, talking about what's going on, and then take a proactive stance on taking steps to get you out of that situation or to solve that problem will and does consistently produce better results in the criminal system, at least from my perspective or from my representation.